Merci. Je suis très ravi d'être ici. Monsieur l'ambassadeur, c'est un grand honneur pour moi de vous présenter un peu sur la Norvège, la Suède du Nord. Et je vais faire aussi des références plutôt pour l'audience francophone. Mais pour nos amis non francophones, il faut que je parle en anglais. So, I will speak briefly about the comparative and quantitative analysis about the High North. First, I will talk about the development of Gator. Gator is based on the ideas and the methodology of Gary King. It's various researchers working on one database, building one database. It's a database for quantitative research. It was created in 2015. The first version is based on data from Norwegian municipality, mainly from 1945 until today. In Norway, we have about 430 municipality, and you will see that it's good for doing quantitative analysis. The long-term goal is to make it available through an easy access user interface so that researchers, scientists, and also other people from public sector could get data relatively easy. But we will publish it on Open Data UIT very soon. It's named after the late great Professor Geir Runar Karlsen, also known as Gator. Okay, so you'll see here. This is a map that we could easily have generated from our database. But this says a lot about how this high north region really is. And I'll talk about the urban development. This is Tromsø, and the accessibility to urban areas. Here are urban areas as defined as 30,000 inhabitants. So it would not be urban in France. But you see here, this is the only place where you can easily actually do urban areas. And here is Bodø. And here is Umeå in Sweden, and Luleå and Skellefteå. So how we build this database is that we make it possible to aggregate also to regional and to national level. It's a panel data structure is also very good. And we can do it to do analysis within regions, but also between regions. And I'll show you more examples of that. It's also interesting to use the spatial regression. So you can use spatial analysis, which is often, and here you can see also in this map, you'll see all these small, that are Norwegian municipalities. So you'll see the size about it. It's bigger than French municipalities. And you can use all various kind of stats in it. This is how the actual database looks like. Here you have Tromsø, which took out, and you see the yearly things. So you can see changes through time. The further development that we're going to do now is we're going to add environmental data. Right now we have 30,405 observations and 283 variables, and we will be adding more and more variables to the database. And we're currently building a similar structure in Sweden, for Sweden, which can be merged for comparative analysis, and I will do a very easy one for you later on. It's also compatible with European nomenclature of territorial units for statistics, the NUTS level that you may know, it's also used in Europe. And we're currently 5 researchers working on the Steinrocken Research Group for Quantitative, Social and Political Science. This is Great Steinrocken. And the long-term plan is to use it for other regions in the High North. So I will briefly do some of our findings or analysis. First, I will see the demographic development of the High North. It's often commonly said, one of the myths about Norway and Sweden is that we said that in Sweden it has been depopulated, that Norwegian policy for district policy has been especially successful. As you can see, here is northern Norway development, and this is northern Sweden. You'll see it's actually quite in real numbers. It's not that big a difference, and the spike here is even though it was a little spike, it has been, in the long term, approximately the same. And this is why I think it's important, and you are French speaking, so you know that, but l'histoire de longue durée. And this is the aspect that we are trying to put in our analysis using Brodel and this kind of thinking. When you put it in, and this morning, here we put it in percentage of state population. Here you can see that in Sweden, we only have data from 1968. In Sweden, it's relatively stable, around 6% of the total Swedish population live in the high north. Whereas in northern Norway, you have a rapid decline from around 12% living in 1945 to around 8% these days. When you do further analysis, you'll see what is happening. In Norway, we have 3 counties, Finnmark, Nordland, Troms. This is Finnmark, which is relatively stable. This is Troms, which is a slight increase, but also relatively stable. Whereas Nordland up here, this is where it actually is declining. And when you see it as percentage of population, you will see it's Nordland who is declining, whereas we have a slight trend in all the counties. But to make this more nuanced, you have to look at the cities. So we've taken the 6 largest municipalities in the high north: Bodø, Rana, and Tromsø. Tromsø is actually the biggest, and then Bodø and Rana. So here you can see Tromsø, which is this is a city which has a big university. Bodø has a smaller university, has a relatively small increase, whereas Rana, the old industrial town or industrial city, is decreasing. You actually see a similar pattern in Sweden, with Umeå, the big university city in northern Sweden, is increasing. Skellefteå, the industrial city, is declining, whereas Luleå is staying. They have also a smaller university. When you put it in a national context, the pattern is even clearer. You see Umeå, this is Tromsø, which is around now 1.2% of the total population are living in Tromsø. You see a similar pattern with Umeå, Bodø, whereas the industrial cities Skellefteå and Rana are decreasing. And of course, the pattern internally in the region is approximately the same. Umeå, now around 20% of the people living in Umeå, around 10-15% of the population in Tromsø or in northern Norway are living in Tromsø. So this is a bit of the shift, and what used to be, I would say, a theory about that Norwegian, there's been different parts, so-called Norwegian Sonderweg. The data does not support that theory. But it's quite interesting that you see a similar pattern in northern Sweden and in northern Norway. And usually we would think that it should have been the same, but a lot of the myths have been that since Norway was a special case, able to do a special policy standing outside the European Union, you could have a special districts policies, and the data does not really support that thesis. So I will talk briefly about the political, how does people vote, because I'm a political scientist. We're interested in that. One last slide about the urbanization in Norway, which is the main factor, and this is similar in France. I'm looking as well. So we are now in a traditional stronghold for the Norwegian Labour Party. I will mainly focus on Norway. Here in the elections this is general election, parliamentary elections every 4 years. You see from 1945 to 1965, the Labour Party was in government, had a majority, even though they did not have more than 50% of the votes. The voting system, proportional representation system, gave them a majority. But you see here with the so-called decline of the Labour Party, you have a similar pattern. following of, and this is the all-time worst. But to make it more nuanced, you have to put it in the national context. Here you also see that Northern Norway has been, along with the inner cities, been a traditional stronghold for the Labour Party, whereas in the last years it's been less of a stronghold for this party. But I think it's more important to see it as with a red block. As you know, in France, le bloc, c'est important. And here you see, and it's actually explaining why. Here you see those two dips, especially this dip. It's coinciding with the EU referendum in 1972. So you actually had an emergence of a socialist left party, and there you can see that for the total voting for left of center parties, it's been relatively high in Northern Norway. One of the special features about this region is the votes for the Norwegian Communist Party. You see in the elections here right after the World War II, you had Finnmark around 20% and staying there until late 50s, early 60s. Even in the 70s, they had elections around 5%. And the Norwegian Communist Party was not like the French Communist Party. You had the Labour Party actually taking a lot of actions against it, and the proximity with the Russian borders. You have all this Cold War thing. So finally, I think the geographical and the spatial dimension of politics is very interesting. And in Norway, we have had 2 referendums about the European Union, membership in the European Union. We voted no with 53% in 72 and no with 52% in 94. The fascinating thing here is the geographical stability. Around approximately, you see, for all the regions, I've made Norway into 7 regions, you have the same pattern, around approximately the same pattern for these 2 elections. It's 22 years difference, but you see a very, very similar geographical pattern. So what this tells us is that to make spatial analysis, making analysis over time, is really important to crunch myths and to gain new knowledge. And with these tools and these databases that are available now, we have fantastic tools. It would be very interesting to also merge with data from France, from French regions, French municipalities, to make even further analysis. So it will be a long-term project. Donc, merci beaucoup.